a lot of people, familiar faces out there. I'm glad to be here with you today for the 2011 Cadets Night. As Paul had mentioned, it seems like Cadets Afternoon, considering that it's not even 3 yet. A few weeks ago, Mr. Shin, we all know who he is, the current president of the Korean ParentsClub, came to me and he asked me to be the next keynote speaker for the event. And initially, I was a little bit hesitant. And in actuality, it was really my job to actually look for a keynote speaker. So it was either to look for a keynote speaker or take on this role myself. And due to the time constraint, I decided, all right, I'll do it. Now, upon accepting this offer, I mentioned this to my wife. And all she could say were two dreaded words, "Oh no." And my son, who was nearby, overheard this conversation, and he came up to me, looked at me squarely, and in a tone only a teenager, very unique to teenagers, he said, "Dad, whatever you do, don't be long and boring." Right? So I'll guarantee that it won't be long, but I don't know about the boring part. So, I'll try my best to live up to my son's advice or his admonishment. Well, people say a good speech should start with a joke or something light. Well, I don't have a joke prepared for you tonight, but I do want to share something with you. And that is something that I saw, very interesting, on my way into the city, into Manhattan, just the other day. Now, I just want to know by show of hands, who here in this room is from New York State? Raise your hand. So I should see a lot of hands up here. Not too many? Surprisingly. Okay. Who here is from the city of New York City? And I'm going to count Long Island as well. Okay. Well, those of you that raise your hand during state, you should have your hands raised. Okay, very good. All right. Now, are there any baseball fans out there? Yes? No? Okay. Well, I'm on my way into the city, and I'm on the Long Island Expressway, right? And there's obviously traffic, heavy traffic, as always. And as I'm approaching the tunnel, the Midtown Tunnel, I see this great big sign, right? And those of you that know about this sign, don't blurt it out. I saw this great big sign next to, or posted on a big building. You can't miss it. And it reads as follows: "Why leave a city that has 6 professional sports teams and also the Mets?" Okay. So that's turned on. All right, there you go. Anyway, now as far as speeches go, for me, most speeches are not that memorable. And I could tell you basically in one hand some of the more memorable speeches that I've actually listened to. And as with most speeches, mine certainly will not be memorable to you. Okay? And if you remember one thing, I just want you to remember one thing, and that'll come in the speech. But as far as speeches go, 5 speeches that were pretty memorable to me was, I don't know if you all remember, the General Patton's speech that he gave. And in fact, it wasn't even his speech, or he who gave the speech. It was the actor, George C. Scott, who gave that great big speech in front of that great big American flag. That was pretty memorable. And the second, perhaps, may be the General MacArthur speech, speech that he gave, a farewell speech that he gave to the cadets. That was somewhat memorable for me. And the third speech is a great speech by Martin Luther King. And we all know that I have a dream speech, right? Yes? We all know that speech, okay. Very memorable. And also, I guess I would have to include President Kennedy's speech. That speech talking about, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. There you go, son. And the last speech that I recall that was memorable, at least for me, was when I was starting out at West Point, and this is very early in my West Point career. I was seated in a room, in an auditorium filled with beanheads, Okay, and so those of you that don't know what that is, uninitiated, that means freshmen, please, 4th class. We were all seated in this, I remember being very hot, stuffy auditorium, and this colonel looked at all of us, kind of staring us down, and told us, you know, as part of his speech, look to your left, look to your right, and by next year, one of you will not be here. So that was my last speech that I remember. But for tonight, Mr. Shin asked me to gently advise me to give a joonman, and that's Korean. Joonman, that means literally good words. And that's literally translated. And I asked myself, why me? I see in this room many, many people here with perhaps greater and more interesting and meaningful life experiences to share. But why me? So I thought about it a little, and I think it's this. The fact that I am a Korean American, and I did graduate from West Point, and perhaps the cadets here in the room may, later on in life, share the same life path as mine, or resemble more or less the path that I took. Now, to be honest, as I said before, I don't possess some great secret to leading a successful or happy life, nor am I any wiser than anyone in this room. Okay. So here it goes. Here's my speech. And I consider myself a practical and utilitarian person. And based on my experience and from where I currently stand in my career, I would like to impart one and only one piece of advice to you. And I'm talking to the cadets, as it is cadets night. But you must understand, cadets, and know this, that the advice that I'm going to give you can't leave this room. I'm just joking. But it's not as nearly as important. It's not as nearly as important as some of the other advices that you've gotten, perhaps by your parents and your elders. And they are as follows. Since all cadets here are single, any married cadets here? No? Meeting the right wife or husband or life partner. Now that's important. All right? That's important. And in this politically correct time, I have to throw in the life partner because of the don't ask, don't tell policy that's been repealed. I don't know why you're laughing, but... And also, it is not as nearly as important, the advice that I'm about to give you, it's not as nearly as important as keeping always and never compromising the moral compass that your parents have given you. And staying true to the values and the belief systems that West Point has taught you. And my advice is certainly not as important as advice that my father gave, and my dad and my mom, they're in the room here tonight. The advice that he gave me and my siblings when we were young, and that is this: mens sana in corpore sano. Right? But I do remember him saying that in English, not in Latin. And that means a sound mind in a sound body. And we all know where that comes from, right? That's from an answer that it was a Roman poet gave to a question that was posed to him. And that was, what is the mankind's desire, what it should be in life? And that was his answer. Now, going back to my one and only piece of practical advice, or joonman, it is this. And my advice will serve you well, whether you continue in the profession of arms, or whether you move on to the civilian world. And it is this, right? That it's important to maintain a good personal Rolodex. Right? Who here knows what a Rolodex is? No? Some of you old Rolodex. All right. Now, in this day of iPhones, personal computers, and smartphones, It's that device that you put contact information on, and it's like a filing system. And I want to emphasize the word personal, and this is why. What do I mean? All right? I certainly don't mean for you to go out and buy a Rolodex. That's not what I mean. But what I do mean is that you keep in contact with, and you keep in contact and maintain personal friends. They are one of your most valuable assets, and in my personal, humble opinion, very important in living a full and meaningful life. You to them, and they to you. You must maintain, nourish, groom, and honor these relationships. Now, on the business side of things, it is also mostly about relationships. And it's never too early to develop and maintain a network of business friends, associates, and associations. You must actively seek out these associates and maintain them. And more importantly, you must actively seek out mentors. For they are the ones that will guide you and shine the light on the path of your career. And in my current line of work, we call them rabbis. Right? Learn from them and their wise counsel. Likewise, and just as important, always find time to be a good friend and become a mentor yourself. And that is my advice to you tonight. Thank you.